Good evening, everybody. Today is the 1st of June, 2020. This is Rick, also known as Duke City Devil Dog. I am in Higginsville, Missouri. It is just a little bit east of Kansas City, Missouri. We're headed out towards New Jersey. Picked up a load in Liberal, Kansas this morning. And I don't know if we're going to make it all the way on this load because we may have to get it repowered. We had an issue at the shipper. When they loaded the trailer, they loaded everything towards the front, and there was no way to get it underweight and to get it legal. So I had to take it back and have them rework it. By the time they reworked it and redid the paperwork and everything else, I was about 6 hours, almost 7 hours late for my DLD, for my deadline departure, and so that just wasn't going to work. So we'll see what happens. We're going to run it hard tomorrow. We ran it hard today. We ran 8 hours, exactly 8 hours, and still managed to run 450 miles. So I'd say that's pretty decent doing that, but it is what it is. Just wanted to talk. I mean, you know, all the stuff going on with truck driving and COVID and everything else, and right now, and before I get into what I want to talk about, I do want to again apologize for sort of being absent from YouTube for a while, for about the last month or so, and it's just been really busy, and I've had issues with cameras. Right now I'm having an issue with my internet, and different things like that, but to be honest with you, I was just a little bit lazy, so that said, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the world. With whatever the topic that started everything, and that's with what happened to this gentleman, George Floyd, and up in Minneapolis, and the horrific thing that happened to him, and there's just no way that the individual that did this to Mr. Floyd should have had a badge. Just by looking at all the complaints and everything else, the sheer number, and somebody was not doing their job, making sure that he was not out there in that capacity. But that's going to play its way through the courts, and God bless Mr. Floyd and his family, and rest in peace, Mr. Floyd. It's horrific that something like that had to happen to you. But while it brings up an issue of this, of police brutality, and you can say the white cop versus the black individual and all that, and whatever side you're on of that, and you can be supportive of what's going on, of people trying to make a point, protest, draw attention to it that way, but it's going overboard. I mean, way overboard. It almost seems like somebody's stoking all this stuff. I know truck drivers right now are concerned about running into certain areas. I've got to run into a part in New Jersey in the next couple days. I'm not sure about. Hopefully by the next couple of days, all of this will sort of blow over. The riots and the looting and all that stuff that has no place in a civilized society, and absolutely takes away from dealing with the problem. People start to go and they rationalize that, oh, this is owed to them or whatever, and they end up causing more problems already. So some of the businesses that they're destroying, and they're not just destroying these big multinational companies and everything like that. And even if they are, like the Target that they destroyed and whatever, they're putting a lot of people out of work, you know. But besides that, they're destroying mom and pop places and places that were going to struggle, you know, trying to get reopened anyway after all of this, you know, coronavirus, quarantine and all of that, and trying to get back open. And they just went and started destroying stuff. Why? I don't know whether they're getting paid to do it. That's, you know, something that I think may be going on, or they're just doing it to do it for some sick reason. I tend to think that somebody's organizing it, because there's just too much out there, too many places, too similar what's going on. You know, you hear reports of you know, somebody dropping off pallets of bricks for people to destroy stuff with, and all this kind of stuff, and I don't know, but you hear all that stuff, you know what I mean? And you just want to, you know, you want to try to you know, you feel for all these people, you know, I feel for the FedEx driver who trying to not save his load, because that was gone, but to try to save his life, tried to move his truck and ended up running over somebody. You know, I don't know how I would feel if that happened to me, but you know, I pray for this guy. I mean, you know, hopefully, you know, all he was trying to do was to save his own life, and you know, it harkens back to the days of, you know, Reginald Denny. If you don't know who that is, you know, you can Google it and then find out. But you know, it's just crazy, and it's senseless, you know. So, you know, all I can do is hope that, you know, people need to be able to make the point that they need to make as far as the issues that are out there. There are issues. I'm not discounting the issues. You know, there are good cops. Overwhelmingly, there are good cops. I mean, it's not just the overwhelming majority. I mean, nearly, you know, almost all cops are upright people, but there are a significant number that, for one reason or the other, that badge goes to their head, and they are just cruel. And I don't know, and it'd be interesting for me to see whether it's only directed towards one group of people. It may be. I don't know. I don't know if anybody's ever studied it or whatever, but whether it's just directed at one group of people, or these guys are just pains in the rear, or, you know, however you want to put it, that, you know, even worse than that, I'd like to say something a lot worse than that have that badge and it goes to their head. I've known people like that, you know. I did, you know. I grew up in a relatively small town in Gallup, New Mexico, and one of the things about the police department is that all police had to eventually go through the police academy. They did, but they were able to be hired provisionally and become provisional police officers while they were waiting for their slot at the police academy. So you had some people that were cops for a little period of time that really never should have, and I don't think they ever actually ended up becoming full-time police officers, but should never have done that, because that badge went to their head, you know. And you know, it is what it is, but that kind of stuff, you know, and you see that all over the place. I mean, the one thing is, and people get on people that say, oh, you know, it's beyond Black Lives Matter, it's all lives matters, and all lives do matter. They do, okay? And I'm not discounting the Black Lives Matter movement. You know, Black lives absolutely do matter, you know. But for me, You know, I think that you know, black lives have to matter all the time, in every circumstance. They can't only matter when it's a white police officer against a black individual. That's not the only time that black lives matter. They matter when a black individual shoots another black individual, or what, you know, like that happens every day, multiple times in different parts of this country. I mean, people always bring up Chicago, but you have to be honest about it. You know, all Black Lives Matter. They do. All. But we only focus on the one part, and we should focus on that. When things happen like that, it needs to be addressed. You know, when somebody of a different ethnic background goes and kills a black person or any, it matters, and we need to focus on that. We need to do that. We need to support changing that plague that's going on in our society. But it's not just that. We need to focus on all of it. And it's not fair just to discount and say, oh, well, that part over there is gang and drug related, so we don't really want to look at that over there. No, you have to look at that too. You have to. At the same time, right, while you're trying to look at the bad cops out there, you also have to celebrate the good cops that are out there. I saw a picture, I think it was in Minneapolis, I think it was out of Minneapolis, where a police officer who was in, there because of the crowds and everything like that, and they're starting to get a riot, and he got separated from the other police officers. And there was a group of African American gentlemen, big guys, that surrounded him, not to hurt him, to protect him, to make sure nobody could do him harm. That's the stuff we need to celebrate. That's the stuff we need to go and we need to push. That's the stuff that we need happening all the time. It can't be selective. You know? It can't be. You know, we there are so many people who wants to sow division out there instead of trying to bring people together. You know, everybody who goes and condemns what happened here need to also condemn what happens every day in this country, regardless of race, regardless of ethnic background, of any of that. If Black Lives Matter in this case, which they absolutely do, they matter everywhere. The other thing that sort of perturbs me is this idea that just because somebody subscribes to the idea that all lives matter, that's some sort of cop-out. It's not. It's not, you know? I mean, people... Here's my view on that, okay? Is when you focus only on the one, and I'm not saying that don't look at the issue with Black Lives Matter, you know, and what they're doing. But there's place in the society to look at both. Because what happens is if you demonize the people that say all lives matter, then by looking at that stance in an analytical kind of way, if you are saying that because somebody says all lives matter, that's wrong, then you yourself are saying that some lives are more important than others, which is where we're saying what the purpose of Black Lives Matters is to say that they don't matter. White lives don't matter more than black lives or Hispanic lives or anything. That they matter. There's a huge dichotomy in that idea. You know, I read all this stuff going around, and you see people get angry because somebody who's very supportive of the idea of Black Lives Matter goes and says all lives matter, and all of a sudden you'd think that you know, they're the devil incarnate. It's rough to see, and you know, I mean, and going back to what this whole my whole vlog's about, and you know, I try not to get too political and everything in my vlogs, but when you live your whole life in a place like, you know, or a majority of it, like I've lived a majority of my life in New Mexico, in Gallup or Albuquerque. I've lived in Las Cruces for a while. I've lived in California when I was in the Marine Corps. I lived in the San Diego area. I lived in Camp Pendleton. I lived in Japan. I've lived in Colorado. You know, I've lived different places. You know, and when you see these images on the TV that are in a certain part of the country or whatever, you look at it, but you sometimes you disassociate yourself because you don't. All you see of that is that little part there. You know, what you're seeing on the TV. But having for the last, you know, now more than 6 months been driving this truck around this country, so many of these places that I see these things happening where these roads are getting shut down and everything else, I've driven those. I know those roads. I know, you know, I know some of those parts of the country. I've seen them, and it becomes a little bit more personal. Now, last thing, and I just want to be real clear about this. I absolutely 100% support people's right to protest, to peacefully protest. The idea behind peacefully protest, it's, you know, it's the idea to peacefully protest and petition the government for a redress of their grievances. But the whole idea is peaceful. The message gets lost when all this other stuff happens. Martin Luther King Jr. recognized that violence did not help the cause, because what happened is people focused on the violence and not the issue. Violence doesn't bring anybody to your side. It doesn't. And that's the whole part about this, is the people that are serious about fixing this issue and addressing this issue are not the ones out there that are being violent. I would not be surprised in the least to find out in some time in the future that somebody is paying so many people around this country to start all this stuff. This country's been through so much in the last 3 months, 3 to 4 months. So much. And now just as it's ready to get out of this, all this stuff happens. And so quickly and so organized, it was almost like they were waiting for an opportunity. And this idiot managed to give him one by doing what he did to this, by all accounts, gentle soul in Mr. Floyd. I apologize if this is a rant and it's going all around, but it's just something I had to get off my chest. Tomorrow we will get back to what we usually do and talk about where we're going and what we're doing. Hopefully tomorrow will be a better day when we hear what the night held, that there won't be all of this that's been going on the last few days. And hopefully nobody else will get hurt because of this. You guys take care of yourself. Be safe out there. God bless. God bless Mr. Floyd. God bless everyone who has been injured because of these riots and everything else. Everybody who has lost a job or a business or property or whatever because of these idiots that are out there doing this stupid stuff. God bless you all. I pray for you, and I will talk to you tomorrow.